Hi, I'm Jenny Rae, the Managing Director of Management Consulted, and I'm here today with Adam Marks. Adam is a former consultant who has a lot of really rich experience, but as an experienced hire, he's got a lot to talk about in his Walk Me Through Your Resume and the stories. So we're going to start with Walk Me Through Your Resume. We're going to break it down for Adam. I'm going to answer some questions that he has. I'm going to have him walk me through his actual resume. And then ultimately we'll get to the place where I give him the feedback and he can actually incorporate it into the process. So Adam, thanks for being my willing victim today on the interview boot camp.
My pleasure.
We're excited to walk through this. And so I think that earlier when we were talking before we began to roll the cameras, you had a few questions. So go ahead and ask me those questions first before we dive in.
Yeah, it kind of starts with, what you said. I have a lot of things here, and I'm not sure what to talk about and how deep to talk about it in the 2 minutes.
Yes.
And so it starts with just the bachelor's that I got, and it goes through the advanced degrees and the experience.
Yep.
What do I talk about and what do I leave out?
Absolutely. So it'll be easier for me to tell you that, and I'll keep that in mind as I'm going through the feedback part when you're actually doing the Walk Me Through Your Resume. But early on in the process, you need to highlight all of your degrees.
Okay.
But you don't have to go into tremendous detail as to exactly what you did and why you did each one for 20 to 30 seconds each. Instead, you want to spend about 30 seconds on that total story. So still give me a little bit of the personal background. Then tell me why you got your bachelor's, but also tell me what advanced study you wanted to do and why.
Okay.
Then when you're talking about your work experience, that's going to be the place where you could really go crazy, where you could talk to me for 17 hours or whether you could talk to me for a longer period of time. So you have to make some choices between brand name experience, which you have some great brand name experience on your resume, and ultimately the type of experience that you want to highlight that's the most recent as well. Okay. Some other experience you're going to need to mention, but gloss over a little bit more. Okay. So before when I was saying 20 to 30 seconds ideally for each experience, if you have like on your resume 5 key experiences, you're not going to be able to fit all of that in.
Right.
So you're going to have to pick 2 to talk about for 20 to 30 seconds. And the other ones you're going to just have to kind of give me a quick, like, here's what I did, and then I moved on to the next thing. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question that you had?
Yes, yeah. And so for internships, they would be something I would want to mention, but very quickly.
Exactly, because you didn't have the same depth of responsibility or the same insights. Later on, when we're talking about your ultimate stories and you're sharing things about teamwork and leadership, you're more likely to pull them from your full-time work experiences than your internships anyhow.
I see. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, are you ready?
I think so.
Okay, great. So I've got a copy of your resume here. I'm going to ask you to walk through yours. And this will be like we're actually in an interview. So I'll be paying attention to everything that you say, as well as your body language, your vocal confidence, and just overall the connection that you make with the interviewer. So
sounds good.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great. Adam, let's get started. So why don't you walk through your resume and give me the background and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Well, I started my study at Syracuse University, and I ended up getting a bachelor's there, and that's in information systems and technology. I went from there to IBM Global Business Systems Services. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, a little nervous, more nervous than I thought.
No problem.
I worked there as a IT consultant, and was rapidly promoted as a systems consultant after a year. And that was due to several key projects that we did well on. After that, I went back to school to get a Master's of Science in Telecommunications and Network Management. And from there, I worked at Cigna for a short time in their leadership development program and was offered a full-time position, but decided that I really wanted to expand both globally and kind of into the business realm. And so from Syracuse getting a master's, I went to Taiwan in Asia and got an MBA. And I learned Chinese so I can speak Mandarin Chinese.
Wow.
Yeah. And I got an MBA in international relations. So that was a very good experience for me. From there, I ended up going to Beijing, where I worked for a company called ICD Security Solutions. Okay. I worked as their IT manager, creating the IT department there. So the reason they needed that department and the reason why they added me on was because they needed leadership in that area of their business. They never thought of it as anything more than a cost center that needed very little time. So the HR department was working on it. So I came in, I brought standards that were necessary as they were expanding both throughout Asia and into the West. And I brought in systems that really helped them save money, increase efficiency. And more than that, they were at the stage where IT systems with standards actually created a competitive advantage.
Great.
It wasn't a kind of a thing that everyone had and therefore you should have it. It was, these people don't have it, now we have it, we're actually ahead of them.
Great.
Yeah, so it was exciting. I was able to build a team. It was distributed throughout the world, and through that team we created, enforced standards, and really made new systems that kind of helped information flow safely and securely throughout the company.
Great.
Yeah. And so I really loved that. I ended up getting promoted to the CIO position, and I prepared the company through SOX compliance to be sold to Brinks, which is a company here in the US.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, moving on from there, I started my own company, which was also an IT consulting company.
Great.
And so it was kind of putting my ICD security solutions experience with my IBM GBS experience into practice in China to make an IT consulting company.
Okay.
And so what I did there was I built all the structures, I built all the systems, I hired the staff, and basically started the company selling complex systems in China. When I don't know Chinese that well was a challenge. It's not like a pen where you can say, here's the product, do you want it? It's an abstract ERP system, actually. Yeah. And so we found ways to gain trust and therefore get into the company and develop a relationship. And so all that to say is when I started this Trigger Networks, the name of the company, this IT consulting company, I started everything from the ground up. The internal structures, internal departments, the staff, the products, the partner relationships, the client relationships, everything. And it was quite a journey. The company is successful and still running today. And I was the general manager first, and now I'm on the board of directors. So I don't need to kind of be there every day.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Which is great. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And then finally, what are you kind of looking for next?
So what I'm looking for next is the same general experience that I had with IBM and Trigger, but on a new level. So when I started at IBM, I was fresh out of college. When I was at Trigger, I was in a more senior role, but in a small company. So what I'd really like is the large company and a more advanced role. Great. The responsibility, the challenges, and the amazing opportunities to develop at a higher level, both through the programs that these larger companies have and the people I get to work with who are just absolutely gifted, and also finally I would say the challenges that these projects give, the chance to overcome and learn from them are very good. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll stop abusing you.
Okay.
You can rest for a second. Great job. Did I make you nervous?
Totally nervous.
I was taking a lot of notes when you were going through the whole process. Here, let me just kind of walk through what you've got here on your paper.
Yeah.
First of all, let's do this. Why don't you give me your own feedback? So tell me what you thought.
Well, first things first, it was brilliant in my mind, but I probably should have practiced it more, speaking it out, because
that's a great insight.
What a weak start. So that's my first thing.
Okay.
The second thing is, and it's because of that, I completely glossed over my first internship at Kodak, Eastman Kodak Company, which, was a long time ago and was small, but Kodak is a brand I probably could have mentioned.
Yeah.
So that was a loss. I think one other possible thing is, I think the order of company name, title, probably should have been more closely adhered to on my side.
Yeah, I think so too. So that's great feedback. My final question, what about the timing? How did it feel to you in terms of time?
I feel like it was around 2 minutes, but I have to say towards the end I was getting nervous. It was going into 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Was it?
I wasn't timing it, but my internal consultant clock went off.
Yeah, okay.
And when we're looking at the video, we can actually see exactly how long it was. So let me kind of give you the background. I'm going into the nitty-gritty here. Yeah. So feel free to take whatever notes you want, because I'm going to give you the opportunity to do it one more time.
All right.
Basically, at the beginning, start with a little bit of your personal background. It sounded like you just woke up in college one day. So, I grew up in the U.S., or I grew up in Syracuse, New York, or was it Syracuse? Is that right? Or wherever
the countryside.
Exactly. Yeah. So where you grew up, that would be helpful. And then why you said I ended up and you said this multiple times throughout your background, I ended up at Syracuse, which again made it sound like somebody drove you there and dropped you off.
Yeah.
You said it later when you talked about I ended up in Beijing.
Yeah.
And so it's a very passive way to talk
passive.
about a very intentional choice that you made.
You're right.
So what I'm more interested in is why you made the choice.
I
So make
see.
sure that you include that in there. For IBM GBS, my favorite thing that you said there, and that was a really strong section actually at the beginning, was that you talked about the work that you did. You talked about it really positively with enthusiasm, and you used the word rapidly promoted.
Yeah.
So that was great. Make sure that you include that in the future.
Okay.
You said after that, I went to my Master's in Science, my MS program, and I really liked the transition that you made between the two of those. So that was also very good.
Okay.
When you talked about going to Cigna, you talked about being interested in the IT side, but also you said I was kind of into the business side. So again, just take out that weak language. It's going to help you communicate a lot more directly and confidently. You're good at building connection. You don't have to soften what you're saying even further. Okay. Then when you're talking about the MBA in international relations, loved that section.
Okay.
The fact that you learned Mandarin obviously makes you a super stud in the business world. And so that's really great when it kind of just came to the way that you talked about that. Same as with IBM. Those two were probably my favorite sections. And when you're building and practicing this over time, you're going to want to kind of get to those sound bites, the enthusiasm, the clarity, and also the brevity of what you talked about there.
Okay.
Then it kind of started to fall apart later when you were opening it up, because this is where it got long. At that point, you were totally on track to finish with great pacing. It was super excellent. But then you talked about being in Beijing. You were talking about your two different companies, both of which weren't brand names.
Yeah.
And I would have rather heard you talk a little bit about the company that was sold to Brinks, the ICD Security Solutions.
Okay.
I would have rather had you focus a little less on that and just talked about the fact that you built a competitive advantage that helped the company get acquired.
Okay.
And then that enabled you the platform to start your own company.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Because I felt like that part just really was laboring on for a long time.
I see.
Then with your own company, again, I think here it would be helpful to have some metrics just because I have no idea how big it is. So it's been running for X years.
Okay.
It's grown to a certain size. There are this many employees or this many client accounts, whatever you think the appropriate metrics are there. You were very conceptual when you talked about that. You talked about gaining trust and the services that you provided and what you did and didn't do, but it wasn't like the actual metrics of building the business.
I see.
And then I did like how you ended it with talking about how I became the GM. I'm now on the board of directors, but I don't have an active management role. And then I prompted you for it, but make sure you conclude with here's what I'm looking for next. Really liked what you said there. Just, focus on the large company stuff that you did at IBM GBS, the more senior role, more recently combining the two together. That really resonates with somebody. It doesn't sound too ambitious. It sounds like an appropriate next step for you.
Cool.
Any questions? I know I gave you a lot of feedback.
Yeah, how do I remember all that?
Yeah. Practice.
Okay.
Because I think you're very self-aware. Yeah. So really a lot of this will come down to building it out and practicing it. We're going to do one practice now.
Okay.
So you'll have the chance to kind of jump in there and get your feet wet.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Excellent. So go ahead and get started. Walk me through your resume.
Okay, great. I'm happy to. So I decided to go to Syracuse University, and I wanted to go to study information systems and technology. So I got my Bachelor's of Science there. Yeah. And from there, I went down to New York City, where I was working in IBM GBS. Yes. So that was a great experience for me because it really gave me a chance to test what I know and to really learn and succeed. And so I was pretty rapidly promoted after the first year from an IT consultant to a systems consultant.
Great.
Yeah, and so it was a great experience. From there, I want to get a master's at Syracuse again. Mm-hmm. And the reason I did that is because I really wanted to up my game, especially in technology, but also in management.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I did 2 years there to get a master's in telecommunications and network management.
Okay.
While I was there, I had a co-op in the Cigna Leadership Development Program and was offered a job there. I decided against it because I wanted to go get an MBA, and I decided to get one in Taiwan, in Asia. Yeah. The reason is because, first of all, I wanted to learn Chinese, and I did. I learned Chinese while I was there. And I wanted to get an MBA that was a little different from a lot of my peers. And so going to Asia was kind of like a nice twist. And so I got an MBA in International Relations in Taiwan. Yeah. So from there, I decided to go to Beijing. And I went to Beijing to work for a small company that was on the verge of basically selling to Brinks. So my role there was to create an IT department, and through that create a competitive advantage against basically everyone in their market. Through that, it made them a much more attractive target for Brinks, and we ended up complying with SOX and really getting a great price for the stakeholders.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Finally, from Brinks, I ended up going. From ICD/Brinks.
Okay.
I ended up going to a new adventure, which was my own company. I started an IT consulting company in Beijing. As a general manager, I built the systems, hired the staff, and really had a chance to explore what it is to be an IT consultant and an owner. And so we started small. It was just me and another girl who couldn't speak English. And over 3-4 years, we went from basically 1 employee to 12 employees. We were profitable after the second year. And I think we had employees all throughout Asia, not just Beijing. So that was a good sign. So now where I want to go, I really am looking for something that combines my IBM experience with my Trigger experience. And Trigger was great because I was in a high level at a smaller company. And IBM was great because I was at a massive company, but I was a little lower level. And so when I combined the two, if I could really have the challenges and opportunities that a higher level manager could have at a massive company, I think that would really develop me in terms of skills, experience, and it would provide opportunities for growth that are just unmatchable. Yeah, and through working with peers and through overcoming different challenges, I think I'd really have a chance to help the clients and help myself.
Great.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
A little long still.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
But how much did it feel better than the first time?
Better,
yeah. And I felt like the story was more balanced.
Yeah.
You were sharing appropriate lengths in different parts of your experience. I still think that you have some work to do in kind of tying everything together.
Yeah.
And in the end, you landed it twice. Did you feel yourself doing that? You kind of concluded it, and then you kind of reconcluded it again at the end after you said all the things that you'd really like about it. You kind of re-emphasized that. So
we'll wrap it up a bit too many times.
But I think what you have here, Adam, is a really great story.
Okay.
Something that is going to pull together into a very attractive combination of skill sets, both technical and managerial, that will really enable you to be an asset to a company.
Great.
Now it's all about just pulling it into the story and being ready to present it.
Speaking it out many times.
Exactly. Great. Thanks so much.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.